Yeah, okay, yeah. Course of action, plan of action, which means, okay, so which means that's what I thought. Because procedure doesn't mean surgery. It also doesn't mean like, it just means a broad plan, right? Meaning that if you are a, you know, if you're a young teenager, part of this, you could be separated from a parent, a guardian, whoever, by the state if you are subject or threatened to hormones, cross-sex hormone blockers, cross-sex hormones, or socially transitioning. Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, signed into legislation what is being described as the Let Kids Be Kids package. It is a collection of five bills passed by a combination of the Florida House and Senate, State Senate and State House, all aimed at curbing certain rights of children who might want to or might be eligible for what can be, I guess, vaguely described as transgender healthcare. So let's go take a look a little bit at his speech, and then we're gonna read the actual text of the laws. So let's get into it, shall we? Actually, maybe this is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna bring this over here so I can keep an eye on it. We'll do this.
Okay.
This is about the best I could do in terms of audio.
Much.
I think this one will be
Cambridge Christian
the best one.
For hosting us.
It's a bit uneven, but you know.
Great to be
oh
in
boy,
Tampa.
did it at a Christian private school. Shocker.
Here. Got a lot of great legislation to sign today. Should be a great morning. Go ahead and grab a seat. You're in for some.
And keep in mind also, this guy is going to be running for president. So if anybody ever tries to tell you or gaslight you into thinking, oh, Ron DeSantis it's just one state, is really something we need to focus on, whatever, he's got a weird face and he kind of looks like a meatball. No, he does look like a meatball. But this is the guy who ostensibly is going to be leading the party after Donald Trump's departure, either from the party, politics, or this earth. So this guy is not, he is not insignificant in the realm of politics.
Some speeches from a few folks. We'll sign some bills. We have any kids in the audience? We may have pens for you too with some of that, so stay tuned.
Fun.
We'll make sure
you can
to do
sign
that. We're really excited
bills to restrict your rights.
Tampa. You know,
that's cool.
I feel very strongly as governor, but also just as a dad of a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old.
Oh my God, way too many kids.
We need to let our kids just be
Somebody
kids.
chop his fucking dick off, please.
We have a very crazy age that we live in. There's a lot of nonsense that gets floated around, and what we've said in Florida is we are going to remain a refuge of sanity and a citadel of normalcy. And kids should have
a citadel of normalcy. My dude, you live in Florida. Please spare me. Look, no hate to Florida, but all the hate to Florida. I'm sorry. Florida's never been a normal state. It's always weird. I'm not ever going to be moved on this. You'll never make me like Florida.
An upbringing that reflects that. And I think that there's a lot of emphasis in other parts of the country and our society as a whole to take that away from them. And we're not going to let that happen here in Florida. And today is proof of that. So we're here in Hillsborough County, and you've seen different things happen right here. I mean, the parents found a number of pornographic materials here in schools funded by your tax dollars. And at one point, you even had the school board vote to not remove it, even though clearly was not appropriate for these young people. There have also been policies that make kids pick pronouns and even hide that from
Whoa,
their
crazy.
parents. And then, of course, here in Cambridge Christian, they had to file a lawsuit against the Florida High School Athletic Association just to be able to pray before
Wait.
athletic games. And so
Well, yeah, if it is a public school, that is an endorsement of religion, which there is a what's the word? We do have a separation of church and state sort of thing going on.
I think all of that is problematic, and we're addressing all of that here today. And joining me today is our Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, as well as our...
Good evening, Board. My name is Will Witt, and I'm here to read you an excerpt from a book called Lucky. He started humping me again wildly. The base of my spine was crushed into the ground. Glass cut me on my back and behind. He kneeled back. Raise your legs, he said. Spread them. He put a hand on each calf and pressed them out farther than I...
You know what I need to know is this person's reading this book. What age was this book for? If it's adults, then what's the problem? Does anyone even care? No, not really. Let's see the ins and outs of... Yep. Yep. Whoa, cartoons. Can you imagine kids drawing cartoon penises? Never in my life. I do love the look of this woman just holding up a book that says this book is gay. Like, I do love that because it is, this is reflective of what the actual attitude is this outrage over, like, the book says it's gay. It's gay. I don't like the gay. It shouldn't be gay. Kids can't be gay. That's not how that works.
Healthcare Administration Secretary Jason Wida, and we've got a number of our legislators who've been involved in these bills that are here today. We have Senator Clay Yarborough and Senator Jay Collins from... Jay is here local.
Can I see like a list of the actual
We have
books?
Representatives Randy Fine, Adam Anderson, Linda Cheney, Ralph Masulo, Robert Brackett, Jennifer Kennedy, Karen Gonzalez Pittman, Fred Hawkins, and Laura Saunders Plakin. Welcome to all the legislators, and thank you for being here.
I wish I could find a list of like the banned books.
We're also joined by Sean Minks, who's the head of Cambridge Christian School. I mean, they're trying to do sex.
Can we move on? Okay.
Last year, youth, and we're doing that in a number of ways here today. Some of the stuff is kind of sad that we even have some of these discussions. When you see what's going on, and we stopped it administratively in Florida last year, but we needed to have the legislature make this permanent. You have a movement amongst, I would say, rogue elements of the medical establishment to do things that is basically the mutilation of minors. I mean, they're trying.
Is he arguing that surgery is some kind of rogue? It's surgery. We've been performing surgeries for almost our entire existence.
Trying to do sex change operations on minors, giving them things like puberty blockers and doing...
Puberty blockers do not change your sex and also is not mutilation. They block your like puberty. Like they pause your growth. That's all they actually do. Let's see. I want everyone to recognize this. How many minors sex change in Florida? Let's see. 8th state to restrict. Now, to any what's the word I'm looking for? To any anybody who's right wing, whether you're watching this in the clip that it will eventually be in, or if you're in chat or anywhere, can you point me in the direction of these child sex change surgeries? Because all I see is bills about it being passed. I don't see a lot of reporting about it actually happening. Yeah, about that. Just saying. Just a bit curious.
That are irreversible to them, and that is not based on
puberty
science.
blockers are
that is not based
irreversible.
on evidence. In fact, you have had countries that have tried to do this in Europe, and they recognize this was very harmful. And so now they don't do it, places like Sweden.
Oh
and
my
yet
God.
here in the United States,
Sweden, why did you do this? Why did you buckle to
I would
political
say,
pressure?
ideologically
Now I have to
charged
hear about it
small
every
group of
other day.
folks within medicine that are really pushing these types of procedures on minors. We think that that is wrong. In Florida last year, we took action so that no.
All right. Since he mentioned kind of a bill, I'm assuming he's going to be referring to Senate Bill 253. Yep. Treatments for sex reassignment. Treatments for sex reassignment, granting courts of the state temporary emergency jurisdiction over a child present. Oh my goodness. No, we can leave this small. Present in this state if the child has been subjected to or is threatened with being subject to sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures, providing that for purposes of warrants to take physical custody of a child in certain child custody enforcement proceedings. Serious physical harm to the child includes, but is not limited to, being subjected to sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures, prohibiting certain public entities from expending state funds for the provision of sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures, prohibiting sex reassignment prescriptions and procedures for patients younger than 18 years of age, requiring the department to immediately suspend the license of a healthcare practitioner who is arrested for committing or attempting, soliciting, or conspiring to commit specified violations related to sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures for a patient younger than 18 years of age, etc. So, let's break this down piece by piece. All right. Granting courts for the state temporary emergency jurisdiction over a child present in the state, meaning that the courts, so normally the jurisdiction of like childcare usually runs under usually runs under the state after there's been like an investigation. This essentially would give states the emergency jurisdiction over anybody's child if the court feels or finds that they have been subject or threatened, which I like how they had to put threatened in there, of being subjected to sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures. So, what do they mean by that? What they actually mean is, so when they say sex reassignment prescriptions, they mean one thing and one thing only, because there's only one thing that under 18-year-olds are going to be getting in terms of prescriptions. It is hormone blockers, and closer to 18, but probably a little bit before 18, most likely around 15 or 16 maybe, cross-sex hormones, meaning, you'll be getting hormone blockers, when you're fucking, I don't know, like 13 maybe, and maybe around 16, you would then come to a decision on, if you were non-binary, if, how you wanted to develop, if you wanted to develop more as a girl, or if you want to develop, develop more into a woman or more into a man, then you would either, depending on what you started with, if you're born, if you were assigned male at birth, assigned man at birth, then you would just get off of the hormone blockers. You would, what's the word? You would develop as a man through your normal puberty, and that's it. Or if you decided that, woman would fit your identity more, then you go on estrogen and you do that for some time, and then you develop as a woman. And then after 18, then it's what other kind of healthcare can you seek to, expedite that process or kind of reinforce that process. But what they are talking about when they say reassignment prescriptions are going to be hormone blockers and hormones in general. Procedures. So the real question is going to be what they see as a procedure. My guess is, because it's so unspecific, a procedure can be anything like, let me look at the syntax. Procedure syntax. Or is it not syntax? Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. Oxford, let's see. Yeah. Course of action, plan of action, which means, that's what I thought. Because procedure doesn't mean surgery. It also doesn't mean like, it just means a broad plan, right? Meaning that if you are a, you know, if you're a young teenager, part of this, you could be separated from a parent, a guardian, whoever, by the state if you are subject or threatened to hormones, cross-sex hormone blockers, cross-sex hormones, or socially transitioning, because that is technically what can be counted as under a procedure. Providing that the purpose of the providing that for purposes of warrants to take physical custody of a child in certain child custody enforcement proceedings, serious physical harm or to the child includes, but is not limited to, being subject to the sex assignment prescriptions or procedures, which is just, you know, them saying, it just restating that and making sure that, hey, as long as there's harm and we define the harm as being subjected to these things. Prohibiting certain public entities from expending state funds for the provision of sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures. This is again, if you had, maybe if you got like hormones, like I remember growing up, there were kids who had to give their prescriptions to the like school nurse in the school nurse's office, and they would have to go there to have them be like basically prescribed or used basically. I don't know if it was like regular stuff. But I do remember, you know, if you had allergies, stuff like that, like the nurse would take that sort of stuff and they would hold on to it for you. And they would hold on the rest of your medical records. But also that would also include procedures, meaning that if you are a teacher who has a student who, you know, wants to go by, an opposite gendered name, that is technically part of the process of socially transitioning, meaning that teacher could be singled out, or you could be separated from that teacher. That teacher could probably get in trouble, actually. I'm not sure if it calls for that. I know it says healthcare practitioner. It doesn't seem like there's anything. Yeah. Oh, well, it's just, prohibiting certain public entities. So I don't know what the it doesn't spell out here what the consequences would be for doing that, but it's basically, you would not allow, they will prohibit you from referring to your students by their preferred name if it's a name that isn't their given name from their parents or from birth, which is, geez, freedom of speech, huh? Let's see. Procedures of patients younger than 18 years of age, requiring the department to immediately suspend the license of a healthcare practitioner who is arrested for committing or attempting, soliciting, or conspiring to commit specified violations related to sex reassignment prescriptions or procedures for a patient younger than 17 years of age. And this is pretty much if you are a health practitioner who is offering hormone blockers, offering cross-sex hormones, or suggesting socially transitioning, then you can have your license suspended and possibly be arrested for any number of these things. So that's just great. That's just wonderful. Fucking free Florida, right? Christ.
No physician that does those procedures are going to be able to keep their medical license. So
like,
that's gone.
They
if
just
you do this.
don't want.
Great.
They just don't want kids who are trans to grow up. That's it. They just don't want them to.
But when we do the SB 254, this will permanent outlaw
Hey, that's the one.
The mutilation of minors.
It won't.
It will outlaw the surgical procedures and experimental puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers aren't experimental. We've been using them for decades. They're not new at all.
Minors. It will also require.
What's funny is also people will say, yeah, but we didn't use them for this specific use. It's like, it doesn't matter what the use is for. It doesn't matter if you take ibuprofen for a headache or a migraine. Like, it doesn't matter between those two things. It has a use. It will do whatever it does in those scenarios. If we find that hormone blockers helps people who want to transition later, then it's an off-label use, but that doesn't make it experimental. They're not experimental.
Adults receiving these surgeries to be informed about the irreversible nature and about the dangers of the procedures. It will give Florida courts temporary jurisdiction to intervene and halt procedures for out-of-state children. You have actually some...
What? Out-of-state children? What the fuck? Wait. Which bill is that? Education, protection of children. What the fuck?
States in this country that want to be a haven for these types of procedures will give Florida require any adults receiving these surgeries.
By the way, the history of hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, started in the 1960s with very high popularity in the 1990s. First clinical trials on HRT and chronic postmenopausal conditions were started in the US in the late 1990s. This is not something we need to study. There is absolutely nothing in terms of hormone blockers that we need to be studying. But hit me with that again, Ronnie.
Be informed about the irreversible nature and about the dangers
of the
procedures. It will give Florida...
Well, what's funny is this isn't informed. This isn't like he's not advocating or signing a bill for informed consent. He's advocating and signing a bill for no access. Like, this isn't a we want to give parents the information. This is a no, we don't want to give parents the option, regardless of their information, of their information set.
The court's temporary jurisdiction to intervene and halt procedures for out-of-state children. You have actually some states in this country that want to be a haven for these types of procedures and even welcome minors without their parents' consent into some of their jurisdiction. We're obviously doing the opposite here, and I think this provision is important. This is going to create a way to recover damages for injury or death resulting from mutilating surgeries or these experimental puberty blockers that are given.
Again, if you'd like to show me just deaths due to this, I'd love to see it, but it doesn't exist. Also, is he talking about SB? Okay, so again, I have all of them up here. So SB 1438, protection of children, prohibiting a governmental entity from issuing a permit or otherwise authorizing a person to conduct a performance in violation of specified provisions, providing criminal penalties, authorizing the division of hotels and restaurants of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation to fine, suspend, or revoke the license of any public lodging establishment or public food service establishment if the establishment admits a child to an adult live performance. Okay, no, this is something else. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about then. I was wondering if it would be the protection of children, but is it this? How would this affect other states? Conspiring. Interesting. Maybe it's like this, you can't take somebody out of state to seek this care, I guess. I'm not...
To a minor. Because what happens, they go through this, then they get older, and this is a huge problem. They should be able to sue the physician who hurt them, and they're now going to be able to with this law. So that's the first law that we're going to be signing today.
Couldn't they already do that? Is that like something new? Like, can't you already seek damages for that sort of stuff under the normal auspices that we already have?
The other law, HB 169, I think is very important. It's basically an expansion of last year's parental rights in education
SB
bill.
169?
But crucially, this bill
I think he means 1069.
makes sure that Florida students and teachers will never be forced to declare pronouns in school or be forced to use pronouns not based on biological sex. We never did this through all of human history until 2 weeks ago. Now this is something they're having third graders declare pronouns. We're not doing the...
Wait, I don't get it. Kids already use pronouns. They already say he, him already. I don't get what I don't understand is what the difference is here. Like, growing up, we used pronouns as children. He doesn't understand that, right? Okay, let's read 1069, shall we? Education. Okay, let's see. General bill by Education and Employment Committee, Education Quality Subcommittee. Don't care. A bunch of, let's see, co-introducers, a bunch of fascists. Okay. Education defines sex for Florida Early Learning 20 Education Code, provides requirements relating to titles and pronouns, revises provisions relating to instruction and materials for specified instruction related to reproductive health, provides additional requirements for instruction regarding human sexuality, provides district school boards are responsible for, wait a minute. Instruction related to reproductive health, okay. For specified instruction, provides additional requirements for instruction regarding sexual or human sexuality, meaning the state has decided there is literally a defined, a politically correct definition of human sexuality. Interesting. Provides district school boards are responsible for materials used in classroom libraries. Revises provisions relating to objections of certain materials and process related to such objections. Revises school principal. Okay, can I like see the actual bill? View summary. Here we go. Okay, here we go. The bill includes provisions designed to protect children in public schools. The bill includes requirements for age-appropriate and developmental appropriate instruction for all students in pre-kindergarten through grade 12. Grade 12? Okay, requires for age appropriate. Also, what's age appropriate? Like, what is and isn't age appropriate is very, very subjective. Includes requirements for specified terminology and instruction relative to health and reproductive education in schools, and requires that all materials used in such instruction be approved by the Department of Education. Lovely. Extends the prohibition on classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity to pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. Okay. Lovely. Jesus. Let's see. Like, keep in mind also, that means you're not getting sex ed until what? 9th fucking grade? Like, to talk about sex ed, you have to talk about sexual orientation. You and like gender also, identity also. These are all things that are related. Like, that means not until 9th grade. How old are people in 9th grade? Because what, I was 18 when I graduated, so what? 15, possibly 14? 14 years until you get some semblance of sex ed? The bill prohibits district school boards from imposing or enforcing requirements that personnel or students be referenced with pronouns that do not correspond with biological sex as defined in the bill. Subject. So understand, biological sex as defined by the bill is a politically correct definition. Like, that is the state sponsored, the state definition of sex, whatever that definition is, which I don't know if it's in here. We can find it maybe. PDF. No. Summaries. Okay, we'll look for it. But yeah, like, that's what this is. This is like, when they say as defined by the bill, that means as defined by whoever the fuck wrote the bill, not by scientists, not by psychologists, not by sociologists, not by people with an understanding of the field, just whatever dumb fuck Republican got voted into the office by some dumb fuck swamp living troglodyte in the same county. Like, that's who's defining sex for everybody in this state now. Jesus. Let's see. The bill prohibits enforcing requirements, personnel to be students. And keep in mind, it's students too. Like, if you're a student, you're not allowed to refer to somebody by the pronouns that they prefer. The bill enhances the process for transparency and review of library and classroom materials available to students in public schools, and the process for parents to limit students' access to materials and make objections to materials. So keep in mind also, I think somebody, there was a parent, I think in one of the Carolinas, who came forward about this. Like, this is literally allowing parents of one stripe decide what is and is not what's it called, what's the word I'm looking for, appropriate for everybody's kids. Like think about this, if you are a parent and you have some like cringy, like, you know, some cringy backwater Christian fundamentalists coming in here and saying nothing in this school, in this library is appropriate, we need more Bibles and everything else. Like you're giving people like that the power to constantly shift what is appropriate for everybody else's kids, regardless. Like if I'm a parent, I can decide what's appropriate for my children. I don't need other parents to tell me what's appropriate. Like the way libraries are supposed to work is kids and adults go to them, they pick out books that aren't restricted. Like kids can pick out adult books and adults say, you're not ready for that, pick something else. Like that's how libraries work. They're not supposed to be these censored annals. That's not what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to have all, like, the entire spectrum of material so that people have broad access to as much information, as much literature as they can. But these people don't want that. You know, they don't like all material. You know, they only want the material that they find to be acceptable. It's fucking authoritarian. That's what it is. The bill requires, like, the idea that say it's authoritarian to allow a book involving gay people in a school. That's authoritarian. But it's not authoritarian to ban books of a certain political stripe and ideology is insane. The bill requires the suspension of materials alleged to contain pornographic or obscene depictions of sexual conduct as identified in current law, pending resolution of an objection to the material. A district school board must also discontinue the use of any material the board does not allow a parent to read aloud. Lovely. Like, go into a library, you're gonna find a lot of objectionable, like, you're gonna find books where characters have sex. Like, it's just kind of a thing that we as humans write. The bill requires that meetings of committees to resolve objections must be noticed and open to the public, and provides an appeals process through a special magistrate. If approved by the governor or allowed to become a law, the governor says, yeah, July 1st. Yeah. So, you know, everybody who lives in Florida, get the fuck out by July 1st. That's what I can recommend for you. Also, bill text. I want to know, Control F. Let's see. An act defining the term sex, amending, I want to know what their definition is. Okay, here we go. Definition: sex means the binary division of individuals based upon reproductive function. Lovely. Paragraph or subsection. Used to teach reproductive health. Throughout the instruction is required immune deficiency syndrome section. Okay, so literally their definition is binary division of individuals based upon reproductive function. What if you can't do that? Like, what if you're born without the function of being able to be to get pregnant? Also, again, like, this is one of those cases where they've decided that sex and gender mean the same thing, and since they can't definitionally put gender in here without acknowledging that, they just won't. So they'll just say that sex is about the division between reproductive functions, even though what makes somebody's sex isn't just your reproductive function. Is the only thing that makes you a woman, or even a female, the ability to bear children. Is that the only thing? Like, Anyway. Anyway, let's go back.
Pronoun Olympics in Florida. It's not happening here, and so.
And like I said, they have to make it about sex, even though it's about people's gender identity.
And so that will be protections for people. Again.
Also, what's the harm?
Kids be kids. Let them be in school like normally, and it's inappropriate to force them to try to choose these pronouns. And
what's weird also is it's like nobody. First of all, we force them. I was forced to use the pronouns of he, him growing up. We didn't even have this conversation. At no point somebody said to me, hey, would you prefer he, him pronouns or like she, her pronouns or they, them? Like, is there a preference that you might have? And like, that wasn't an option given to me. It never was. I was just always a him, always, he. It's like, how is this damaging also? Because kids are going to eventually need to use pronouns. Don't you think it's expedient to use pronouns that people aren't uncomfortable, having referred to them under? Like, I would think that's...
Do that. This also expands what we had last year. They said no sexuality or things like transgender ideology or gender theory in grades K through 3. Actually, what you saw is some people are trying to jam it into pre-K to get around that law. So this says pre-K and also goes up to grade 8, because I think what we've seen in these libraries and some of the books, there's clearly a concerted effort to try to do indoctrination in the middle school grades. And so the legislature, I think, has looked at that evidence and wisely said that, on those issues, if a parent wants to engage in that with their kid at those late ages, then that's up to them. But we should not be putting that in the curriculum in school. And so we're not.
That also, okay, so we've read them so far. Nowhere in here have I seen curriculum. All I've seen is the expending the funds for the provision of sex reassignment procedures, which again is going to mean socially transitioning. Nowhere in here do they define that it has to be part of curriculum, and nowhere do they define that any of this has to be like, oh, it's taught, it has to be taught. It's all, you can't bring it up. All of it is just, if you bring it up, you're banned from talking about it. All right.
Not doing that. We're going to be focusing on math.
Remember the definition that they said, which was biological, or what was it, reproductive function, defines sex for Florida Early Learning 20 Education Code, provides requirements relating to titles and pronouns, provides provisions relating instruction and materials for specified instruction relating to reproductive health, provides additional requirements for instruction regarding human sexuality, meaning you can't deviate from the definition that they have chosen, and provides district school boards are responsible for materials used in classroom libraries, revises provisions related to objections of certain materials and processes related to such objections, revises school principal, school district, and district school board duties and responsibilities related to certain materials and processes. Yeah, so like they're just lining everything up. So it's, you have to go by this definition. You cannot deviate from it. It's not about if you teach it. It's not about if it's in curriculum. It's not about any of this shit. It's just, if you bring it up, that's how you trip on the law. And we'll know it because if you bring it up and somebody brings it up to the school board meetings, then there's going to be some consequences.
Focusing on reading, we're going to focus on science. We're focusing on the subjects that really, really matter for our kids. So that's really important. Third bill, HB 1438. And this is sad that you kind of have to do this. There's these adult performances. There are these these drag shows, sexually explicit in what they're doing. And look, adult entertainment, people can do what they want with some of that. But to have minors there, you'll have situations where you'll have like an 8-year-old girl there, where you have these like really explicit shows, and that
this guy's talking about focusing on science and math and everything else. Florida has never matched the U.S. average scaled score on 8th grade math and AEP. In COVID March 2022, Florida's 8th grade scale scores in reading and math both lost 8 points relative to the national average. Like, Florida's already doing a shit job of what's it called? Of like education. Let's see. Actually, let me look. I see something contradictory. Let's see. Florida's education system is vastly underperforming. When was this? This is 2023. Where does Florida rank in quality of education? Let's see. Index gave Florida its overall top ranking. Also rating Sunshine State #1 for digital and personalized learning and education. Okay. Set up for success. Set up for students. Okay. What is education? Today, Commissioner. That seems... I'm actually really skeptical about that. Let's see. Am I just wrong? Am I like full of shit? Education. States with the best education. Let's see. Okay. #1 in higher education. 14th in pre-K. What are these from? World study, a world report. Interesting. So why is the Tampa Bay Times saying? Let's see. A close look at the nation's report card. Stop. Go up. Nation's report card shows Florida fails its students as they move up through the grades. Florida has the nation's worst learning rate. Shades of blue show states with below average. Where are they pulling this data then? Source, the Educational Opportunity Project. Oh, Stanford. Shit. Okay. Oh, wow. Learning rates by state. Amount learned per grade relative to U.S. average. So, let's see. Wow. Florida. Jesus. Florida's really low. Let's see. Florida students learned 12% less each year. Graded the national average from 2009 to 2018. The next worst state was Alabama. Contrast that deafening silence with the hype. Interpretations that come with the release of the NAEP, the nation's report card. When the results came out last fall, Ron DeSantis crowd on Twitter that we kept schools open in 2020. Today's NAEP result once again proved that we made the right decision in Florida, the #1 in both reading and math. Okay, here we go. Telling DeSantis ignored the 8th grade results, which came out far worse than 4th grade, just as they have in every NAEP cycle since 2003. The nation's report card is a snapshot of group proficiency taken by different cohorts of kids, every 2 years in reading and math in 4th grade and 8th grade. It produces state-by-state results and proficiency rankings. It does not track individual kids year over year, but it does tell you how Florida's 4th and 8th graders compare with students in other states. I crunched the data, and here's the bottom line. Florida students perform worse as they move up through the grades. There is consistent, massive systemic regression with age, and the gap is widening. This is a state failure. Okay, let's see. Florida kids regress dramatically as they age in the system. Since 2003, Florida's 8th grade rank as a state has never come close to the 4th grade rank in any NAEP test in any subject. The size of Florida's regression is dramatic and growing, especially in math. Florida's overall average NAEP state rank regression between 4th and 8th grade since 2003 is 17 spots math and 18 spots reading. But since 2015, the average are 27 spots math and 19 spots reading. Let's see. Florida versus Massachusetts. Which one's which? Oh, Massachusetts is black. Oh, Jesus. I thought that was the end of the bar. Christ above. Florida has never matched the U.S. average scaled on high. Oh my God. In COVID March 2022, Florida's 8th. Let's see. Top 10 ranking in 4th grade into 8th grade from 2019 to 2022. Reading. Let's see. Massachusetts went first to first. Florida went first to 22nd. Oh, I understand this. Okay. So they're looking at kind of a much broader picture of like how people do in the beginning and then how they continue to like perform. Yeah, so in 2019, oof. Fucking, that means they're doing like good in the younger years and then just shit later on. Isn't really, let's see. 2nd in reading drops all the way down to 18th. 4th in math drops all the way down to 31st. Okay. Well, I'm glad I decided to read the Tampa Bay article now. Anyway.
That is just inappropriate. And I think in Florida, what we've said, and we've taken some action administratively already against some of the offending establishments, but the reality is we needed the legislature to come in and really, really clarify that if you are an establishment that's having adult performances, you have an obligation to make sure that these young kids are not permitted in the premises. And we're going to hold you accountable if you're not meeting that obligation. You know, there's certain things we would never say it'd be okay, you know, to have a 12-year-old.
All right, let's read it. Protection of children. We actually already read this a little bit, but prohibiting a governmental entity from issuing a permit or otherwise authorize a person to conduct a performance in violation of specified provisions, providing criminal penalties, authorizing the Division of Hotels and Restaurants of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation to fine, suspend, or revoke the license of any public lodge, establishment, or public food service establishment if the establishment admits a child to an adult live performance. So, what the fuck? Okay, 1 second. What the fuck is Florida? Okay. Well, actually, no. Let's look up the text really quick. What is a this one? What did they say? Adult live. Let's actually do performance. All right. Means any show, exhibition, or other presentation in front of a live audience which in whole or in part depicts or simulates nudity, sexual content, or sexual excitement, or specific sexual activities as those terms are defined in lewd conduct or the lewd exposure of prosthetic or imitation genitals or breasts when it predominantly appeals to a prurient, shameful, or morbid interest. Okay. Very patronizing language there. Is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community of this state as a whole with respect to what is suitable material to conduct. Okay, that's just an appeal to fucking prudes. Makes sense. Taken as a whole is without serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Oh, I love that. I love the state deciding whether something is literarily, artistic, or politically, or artistically, politically, or scientifically valuable to you, to a child. I love that. Quote, knowingly means having general knowledge of, reason to know, or a belief or ground for belief, which warrants further inspection or inquiry of both. The character and content of any adult live performance described in this section, which is reasonably susceptible of examination by the defendant, and the age of the child, a person's ignorance of the child's age. Okay, cool. Love that. Exposing children to adult. Yeah, so let's see. Exhibition or other presentation in front of which depicts, simulates nudity. Okay. I need to know. Ay. I'm going to take the first thing that comes up. I need someone to tell me. Is this, what is it again? Is this simulating nudity? Is this sexual? Is this sexual excitement? Is that anything, any way you would describe this picture? I see a absurd amount of makeup, a wig, and a plaid shirt, and whatever that is. I don't know what that's called. The like cowboy tassel things. But like, what about this is sexual? I just don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. Is this sexual too? What I, I guess the better question also is what isn't sexual at this point? Like, what isn't sexual to these people? Is this sexual? A person wearing a dress, their arms are showing, is that sexual? Like, we live in a fucking hell world. Yes. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway.
At some of these things. And so we want to make sure that that is uniform. When you have adult entertainment, when you have these sexually explicit performances, there should not be any of these kids there. And this is going to make sure that that's the case. And so HB 1438 will be signed into law momentarily. We also
keep in mind, this will simply be used. And again, let's be really clear. The idea that if a kid at some point enters, either with, like, you know, whether the person putting on the event knows it, whether they do, whether they don't. I saw there was a provision in there that it looked like it didn't even really matter if you didn't know. But you can have your entire business license just revoked, just completely revoked, if somebody comes to you with complaining. And keep in mind, there are going to be there's a reason why this bill was put in place, and it's not because they're worried about kids seeing people dressed in silly outfits. It's so that when protesters show up to drag shows, when protesters show up to family-friendly drag shows, they can point and scream and say that's sexual content. That, you know, they can do all of their Karen screaming, and that business can have their license revoked. They don't have to prove any of it. They can just point to it and say, nope, that's, you know, I think we read it earlier. It's, you know, if it's deemed not appropriate by the community, to which it's like, all right, well, that's pretty fucking subjective. And considering the idea that, like, and the whole point is that they want to, it's not even about how many people will do that, how many people will show up to, you know, drag shows, family friendly or otherwise, and protest and complain about them. It is simply, this law is going to be signed into law. This bill is going to be signed into law. It's going to end up putting pressure and forcing, you know, out of like a concern for safety, any venue that wants to put on a drag show, family friendly or otherwise, to not do that. This will have a chilling effect on the on these kinds of events in the state of Florida. That's just what's going to end up happening. You know, more of the, you know, pride events that come up in, you know, we'll really have to see. I guess, when is it? It doesn't take effect until, you know, it doesn't take effect until July 1st. So they're going to get through all of Pride Month. But the big question is going to be, you know, once, and honestly, now that I think about it, my conspiratorial mind, and this is pure conjecture on my part, but I feel like they're making sure, because none of these go into effect until July 1st. Correct? I'm pretty sure about that. Effective date? No. Okay, so the protection of children one goes through. Oh wait, no, that's the one. Shit, never mind. What am I saying? I'm full of shit. I was clicked on a different one. Appearing that he or she is maintaining a license. Yeah. This goes into effect immediately. This is already into effect. So Pride Month in Florida, they're gonna have to be looking out for, you know, any number of this kind of wacky ass, you know, any of these like fucking psychos who consistently, you know, protest these drag shows. They're gonna be looking out for these people and probably going to be like trying to host less of them. Same with the hormone therapy stuff. That's also going through. That's also already gone through. The only ones that look like they don't go through until July is the school ones And yeah, so all the school related ones go through the 1st of July, probably lining up with the end of the school year, I would guess, but I'm not sure. But yeah, whereas the drag shows and the and like people being able to get healthcare are all going to go through immediately. God, fucking gotta love that.
Also going to sign HB 1521, which is ensuring women's safety, making sure that educational institutions, detention facilities, correctional institutes, juvenile facilities, and public buildings with a restroom, locker room, or changing facility, that they must have separate facilities for men and women based on biological sex. A woman...
Oh my God, my ear.
A woman should not be in a locker room having
It would be
to
female,
worry
you
about
fucking
someone
idiot.
from the opposite sex being in their locker room. And it's happening with athletics, with our girl athletes and women athletes, also with some of these other things, whether it's a prison situation, whether it's just these restrooms. We want to make sure that our girls and our women are protected. And so this bill does that and makes sure that they're not going to be exposed to situations that...
I would ask, what about trans men? But let's be honest here. They don't give a fuck about trans men. Nobody ever talks about trans men. It's very obvious. And this is also a, it's very obvious why they always focus on women. And it's because they're patriarchal. Because they think their job is to protect the women. And it's mainly because if that wasn't their purpose, as men, what would they have to do? A man's purpose is to protect the frail, fragile women who are incapable of defending themselves. All right, let's read this one now. Facility requirements based on sex provides requirements for exclusive use of restrooms. And changing facilities by gender. Okay. Prohibits willfully entering restroom or changing facility designated for opposite sex and refusing to depart when asked to do so. Provides requirements for exclusive use of domestic violence centers by gender. Provides requirements for correctional institutions. Requires entities that receive state licenses to submit compliance documentation, authorizes Attorney General to bring enforcement actions, provides exceptions for individuals born with certain genetically or biochemically verifiable disorder of sex development. So let's keep in mind also, this entire bill is unenforceable. This will literally do nothing except what you are going to see, what my big prediction is, and you can call me crazy on this one, but what we are going to see is, for the most part, nothing happen, because if you are a trans woman, you probably pass a little bit. So most likely there's not gonna be other women in those restrooms who are going to be all that bothered. Also in women's rooms, it's mostly stalls. What you are going to see are really fucking weird, just fucking loser ass women who go into restrooms and feel intimidated by either masculine looking women or black women. And they're going to use that as a justification to tell them to leave. They've done it in the past. They'll do it again. And what's going to happen is we're going to we're going to have that situation where they'll say, you need to leave. You don't belong in here. And a cis woman with who for whatever reason to that person doesn't look like a cis woman to them is going to go, no, this is my bathroom. You can fuck off. And then what? Then what do we do? We get the police, and then what? The police genital search the woman making the accusation and the woman who's accused of being in the wrong restroom. This is untenable. This isn't a thing that we're actually going to see happening. This is, for the most part, this is going to be used in very few cases, and it'll be used primarily by a bunch of weird Karens and racists. That's pretty much it. And we're not going to actually see anything meaningful come out of this specifically, except the only thing meaningful that will come out of it will be a further disenfranchisement of trans people. At the end of the day, they're just going to be stigmatized for using the restrooms that comport with their gender identity. That's really it. There's really nothing that's going to come out of this. It's going to be possible to fool that many people. Dude, have you seen trans women? Trans women are not possible. They probably wouldn't get called on it, though. Well, yeah, that's the point. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going, like, God, I hate trying to, like, I don't like using examples of trans people to make my points, but no, I don't want to do it. Well, actually, no. I know who to use. I know who to use that I won't feel bad about. I know exactly who to use, who I won't feel bad about, who I don't mind using as not as a punching bag or anything, but like just as an example. I don't like, let's see. Sure. Like, I'm sorry, but if this woman enters into your restroom, are we really going to, you're not going to be able to tell, and you won't tell anyway. Only people who like don't pass perfectly. And again, that's all down to like everybody's individual ability to like read people and their identity. Like, and we're leaving this to normal people. And that's what I'm saying. It's untenable and it's going to be abused by like randos. Nothing good is going to come from this. No lives are going to be saved. We don't have some rash of assaults or abuses by trans women on cis women in bathrooms. This is meaningless. This is only going to be put in place to disenfranchise and demonize an entire community of people. Check is going to be less possible. So, yeah. Not only be awkward, but like, imagine when you're wrong, how fucking stupid you're going to look. That's like also the big thing. Anyway, oh, I see we're on red right now. How wonky, let's see. How wonky is the stream right now? According to my thing, we're down a bit. Oh, we're down kind of well, actually not as much as you would expect. What is going on with the internet now? Wish I had more steady internet. Anyway, well, we'll see if we can wrap this up quick. I think we only have like one more to do. Yeah, he's only got one more to do, so.
That are not in their best interest. And then finally, HB 225, expanding
Oh,
access
look at that.
to youth sports. This is going to do a number of things. One, it's going to allow private school, virtual school, and homeschool students to participate in sports and extracurricular activities at public or private schools, regardless of their zip code. We think it's important that they're able to do that, and this is going to expand that ability here in the state of Florida. It also preserves the First Amendment right to speech, including public prayer, at the beginning of high school sporting events. How do we get into a situation, and you're going to hear the from the school here about not allowing prayer before a game. The athletic association.
Well, yes, if it's a public entity, it is an endorsement, or at the very least, a platform of a specific religion, something that we have a history of not being very friendly to. Let's read really quickly. Interscholastic activities, authorizing charter school students and Florida virtual school full-time students to participate in extracurricular activities at a private school under certain circumstances, authorizing charter school students in Florida virtual school full-time program students to participate in interscholastic extracurricular activities at private schools under certain circumstances, authorizing traditional public school students to participate in interscholastic and intrascholastic activities in certain schools, revising the requirements for students to participate in such activities. Okay, so this one kind of isn't really all that interesting. Like, this one doesn't seem all that fancy, all that relevant. Related to, okay. By sport, participate in the championship contest or series. Ooh, wait, actually, you know, a lot of times, I just thought about this. A lot of times we hear people have like problems with, like I hear all the time about how unfair it is for cis women to compete against trans women in sports, right? Like that's like a whole thing. They're like, oh, well, like it's unfair, and you know, there's like a biological threshold that has been passed that we think is unfair, which I don't want, you know, I think there is an argument that there is some kind of like biological threshold that we could quarter off, but even that I'm skeptical of. But more or less, the better question I think is, what am I thinking right now? I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, fairness. But like we talk about fairness, but is it fair for public school students who have to be funded by by public funds, meaning if you go to kind of a shitty county school, if you go to a low income neighborhooded school, you're probably not going to get as good of equipment, not as good of training, not as good of resources as kids in private school. That's unfair, but somehow that's like okay. It's weird to me that we seem to make that there's an argument always to be made about fairness between biology, but not fairness from of like resources, right? Like we've all seen like movies or TV shows or whatever where there's always the rich private school who has all of the resources and they fucking cream all of like the public school kids because they have all the shit resources. Like that's unfair, but why is that not something that we're like, why is that an unfairness that we're okay with? Like the economics of fairness doesn't seem to be something that we concern ourselves with. It's for whatever reason the biology, even though like in sports, what we are primarily performing is is the unfairness of athletic acumen. Like there's not always, I don't know, it's just weird to me. Like you're okay with the rich kids facing the poor kids who have untold numbers of dollars of extra resources and everything else, but letting like a weakened born male student who's been on estrogens for some time, it's a big deal for them to compete. And like, you know, especially with Leah Thomas, I talked about this in the Riley Gaines segment we did last week. Riley Gaines tied with Leah Thomas, and then they both got beat by 4 other women. So it's obviously not a case where, you know, Leah Thomas is crushing it, just crushing every woman in her path. She's competing like Riley Gaines, like on par literally with Riley Gaines, a cis woman. And on par means not as good as 4 other of them. So I don't know. It's just like sports are always unfair. Is it unfair that Michael Phelps has like an ungodly like wingspan? No, but you know, it's kind of life, right? But like we don't seem to think that that's inherently unfair. I don't know. It's just weird. Anyway, okay, so this one's kind of a lot more boring, but we'll hear him out for the rest of it and then getting out of here.
Somehow putting the kibosh on. I'm sorry, you have a right to free expression of religion. If government is denying your right to say a prayer before the game,
well, you
they
can't,
are infringing.
Well, wait there. Hold on, Ronald. You personally can pray all you want. It's about if the school or the public entity, specifically if it's a public entity, were to signal boost or platform your religious ideology. That's the actual problem. You know, if a coach, I think I remember there was like a there was like a story about like a coach who prays at like the 40-yard line or 50-yard, whatever it is for football, in the end zone in football after like football games down in the South. And it's like, look, dude, if that's what you do after the game, I got no problem. Where I have a problem is if you would like to blare that prayer over the loudspeakers that everybody in that community pays for. That's where I have a problem. Once public resources are being used to promote or even signal boost a specific religion, that's where we run into separation of church stuff. But if you personally do it, then no, you shouldn't be arrested unless you're Ron DeSantis, in which case you should always be arrested for everything you do, especially eating pudding, apparently.
Speech, you're not violating anything by doing that. And so for them to do it is discriminatory. So we're making sure, and the idea that we would have to litigate this in court is really, really unbelievable. So Sean Minks is going to come talk about, what they did here. But it's sad that we in this country have a high school coach from Washington State. After the game, just would go to the midfield in football, say a prayer. Some people wanted to do it, some didn't, that's fine. So he leads people that wanted to do it in prayer, and he got suspended from his position by the school system up in Washington State for that. He had to go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay. This is actually a pretty good one. We were mentioning earlier, like, are you going to be asking this woman for proof of their biological sex? At the end of the day, this is what I meant about the bathroom. The bathroom law doesn't mean anything. It's unenforceable. It's fucking stupid. It's only there to stigmatize trans people. It's not there to actually solve any problem, mainly because it's not a problem to solve. But like, if you saw this woman, would you stop her in the bathroom and excuse me, ma'am, I need to see your genitals before you go to the bathroom in this private stall that we all go into our individual private stalls in? Like, it's fucking stupid.
Supreme Court to be able to get his job back and to say that you didn't do anything wrong. So we're going to make sure
I think that's
we're
actually the same
protecting
story.
people, and we're making sure that they have the ability to speak and to pray, as they see fit as individuals. And part of the way we're going to be able to do that is we have a high school athletic association, Florida High School Athletic Association, and it's not really subject to much accountability. It's kind of just been there as a private body. What this bill does is it imposes oversight over it. It allows more gubernatorial appointments and
lovely,
and
more
part
more
of the reason
executive
we need to
control.
do that is
That's great.
we passed 2 years ago the Fairness in Women's Sports Act to say we're going to make sure our girls and our women athletes are able to compete with integrity.
Why is it only
And you
women
can't be
athletes? Seriously.
competing on the men's team for 3 years, switch to the women's, and what? All of a sudden you're the champion? That is not.
Wait, what about if women would like to compete against men? Like if cis women want to compete against men? That's, in their mind, that's inherently unfair. Should that not be allowed because we shouldn't let men play in an unfair field where they have an advantage? Like, it's so weird to me. It's like, why is one of these and I mean, their concern is, again, it's patriarchal. That's why they're never ever interested in trans men competing in men's sports, or even women who want, or cis women who want to compete in men's sports. Like, I've known a few. They were capable and perfectly good at it. But unfortunately, this is the conception of how they see women. They see you all as weak, as frail, as not as capable in terms of sports. You're just not good at sports like men are, apparently, which it's just it is what it is. It is what it is. Just shows kind of a mindset, I guess. The thing that they tell, like at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to like click on one of these like things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.